Now, this is something I like to talk about. The movies have gotten worse post-2000 fallacy, or just movies getting worse, which I just think is completely untrue, and I just felt like talking about it. This is Opinions in the Mic, and these are my opinions. Okay, this is some of the nitpicking logic which I think these people who have the sentiment that movies are getting worse use now. Yes, in the past, before the year 2000, there were many excellent movies. Many excellent movies, as you can see on the left. And of course, on the right, there are very terrible movies now. But you could also use this in reverse. You can say that movies are better now, post 2000, as compared to in the past, by using nitpicked examples, as you can see here. What I think it really comes down to is nostalgia, to be honest. That's all it is, and it's a pattern which you can see all the time with people. Now, I'm making a lot of generalizations here about what people from different generations think is good and bad. Of course, there are people of all generations who think new movies are good, and there are many younger people who think, you know, like new movies are bad and older movies were better. But I'm just going to make a generalization just to make this easier. Now, the Silent Gen, I assume, think that these movies at the top were good, and the movies at the bottom are worse, because this is an attitude which I've seen from a lot of older people, that movies back in the day, like say pre 1970, or at least 1975, were sort of more pure, like they were more moral, whereas like the newer movies, so like, Die Hard, Terminator, and Robocop and all that, they're a bit too violent, something. They're a bit too crude. Whereas like the older movies were a lot more, I guess, pure. That's a sentiment I've heard from a lot of like Silent Gen and Boomers. Now Gen X, like these are the movies they will grow up with. But I've noticed that with a lot of Gen X, they'll love movies like Robo and Breakfast Club, but they'll hate. They definitely hate the prequels, that's for sure. And they are pretty old. I mean, Phantom Menace came out in 1999. A lot of people find that movie terrible, and that's a pre-2000 movie. A lot of them don't like the Fast and Furious franchise, so it's like, what I think with this generation is that, whereas with the Boomers and the Silent Gen, they would find like movies to be more pure and moral, or weren't too excessive. Whereas I think with this generation, the Gen X and the Millennials, and there's definitely a pattern with the Gen X and Millennials, that movies were more original, whereas newer movies are less original, which is probably somewhat true. But I don't think movies are getting worse. That is something which I think is just wrong. Wrong. Now, the millennials, they grew up with their own movies. I'm a Gen Z, but yeah, it's the same sort of thing. Like more original movies in the past, and they were a lot more willing to be edgy and truthful. Whereas like the movies nowadays, they're just slop. Like they're made from an AI generator, which I think's wrong. But yes, there are culprits like Marvel. Hey, and by the way, I like Avatar, but a lot of millennials don't like Avatar. Now, the Gen Z, who I'm a part of. So you have a mix of things. A lot of Gen Zs love Marvel a lot more than the millennials do, that's for sure. You have a good variety here. A lot of them grew up watching Shrek, American Psycho, like Superbad, and that kind of thing. But same with the millennials. A lot of Gen Z, they don't like the slop. They don't like a lot of Disney. But they especially don't like Phase 4 of Marvel. I think Phase 4 or 5. And I don't like Disney remakes. That's absolutely for sure. I hate remakes. Can't stand them. Unless they're an improvement, or they find flaws in the original and they try to make improvements. Now, Gen Alpha, not much to say. I mean, they're not old enough to know, for me to know what they don't like. But I do know a little bit what they do like. What I've noticed is that Gen Z, they tend to like more children's films more than the older generations. That's just something I've noticed and I want to point out. But Gen Alpha, they have an excuse. I mean, most of them haven't even hit 20 yet. But yeah, a lot of them grew up watching Despicable Me, Bluey, a lot of them like, sort of like the newer post 2015 Disney movies. And Spider Man. What's that one again? Spider Man. Oh, yeah. So 2018. Oh, Into the Spider Verse, that's what it's called. Anyway, and it's the same cycle. Same cycle. So, as a baby, become a rebellious teen, became a jaded adult, and then the old man yells at the sky, and that's how it goes. And, thank you for watching. Might have to do a re-upload of this video. This is unscripted, completely unscripted. I don't think movies are getting worse. I really don't think they are. Watch better movies, people.